Good afternoon. I'm Annetta Wilson, a board member of Heart of Florida United Way, former news anchor and communication skills coach. And today we're going to talk about a very serious problem, not only in the country, but in the state. Florida ranks 49th out of 50 states in mental health services. So if your jaw just dropped, you definitely want to stay with us and learn more about that. With me today are Kathy Pineda, who is Manager of Training and Development for the 211 Information Hotline, and Samantha Breslin, who's a licensed mental health counselor with Devereaux. And we're going to talk about the fact that September is Suicide Prevention Month across the country. But let's learn a little bit more about how you help people who are in crisis. Tell us about 211.
Absolutely. 211 is the information and referral line for social services. Individuals that are needing help in finding resources, finding help with rent payment, food assistance, basic needs can always reach out and we can give them the most updated information about resources.
And you handle a big volume of calls too.
We did. Last year alone, the 211 line received over 112,000 calls for information and referral services, and that's just in our Tri-County area, Orange, Osceola, and Seminole.
Wow. And Devereaux is especially important as we talk about a problem people don't want to talk about very often, suicide. Tell us a little bit about the services that you do.
Right. So Devereaux Advanced Behavioral Health, we're actually nationwide mental health and behavioral health provider. One of our largest centers is in Florida, and we provide outpatient counseling services, psychiatry, and we also provide residential services, and there's so many services I could talk about. But I'm the director for Mobile Crisis Services that serves Orange, Osceola, and Seminole County, and we serve ages 0 to 24 for any individual that's in crisis.
Tell us how that works, the Mobile Crisis program.
Sure. So our partner is 211. And any individual in the community, whether they are calling for themselves or a loved one calling on behalf of someone else, they can call into 211 and request mobile crisis services, and we respond immediately to that caller's location. And our average response time is about 30 minutes, but we're generally there in under an hour. And we also provide services immediately via telehealth if that's what the caller wants. And we are available really for any crisis, not just suicide. It can just be, I had a really rough day and I want to talk about it with someone, all the way up to actual suicide plan and wanting to talk about that. So we are available 24/7, 365 to Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, and we're a free service. Which I think is super important.
That's the best word of all.
Right.
So unfortunately, we're highlighting a problem that people don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about suicide. We don't want to talk about that person that we know that is right on the edge. And most of the time it's because we don't know what to say. What would you say to someone who's watching us right now and going, yeah, but it's not my business, or I don't know how to start that conversation, or nobody's going to listen to me anyway? What would you say to someone who's in that space?
A lot of times, people identify that there's something wrong. Maybe they're withdrawn or they don't want to participate. They notice that their behavior's changed. They're starting to express hopelessness. I don't want to do this. I want to give up. And whenever you notice those signs, reach out, build that connection. Those are signs that they want to talk, they want support. And you're right, sometimes it's not comfortable to talk about it, and you might not feel like you're the right person. But just reaching out, building that connection, say, I've noticed that this is going on. If you want to talk to somebody, these are some resources. Our 211 line, 988, which is our crisis and suicide prevention line, we're 24 hours as well, and we have trained staff that can help and support somebody going through crisis. But just reaching out and building that connection can make a huge difference.
Because we've talked about 211 as a resource for rent, food. We know 911. Everybody knows 911 is the emergency. Now we've got 988, which is strictly dedicated to suicide prevention. Takes the place of that 800 number that we all used to hear about. You said something really key, Kathy, when you said, be there, just open up. But what do we say? I mean, you're a licensed mental health counselor, Samantha. What do you say to someone? Often we don't know the words.
And sometimes I think even saying like, I don't know what to say, but I am here for you. I'm here to talk. I'm here to support you. I'm here to do whatever, you want to do right now. If you don't want to talk to me as a loved one, offering those 211 or 988 resources, because sometimes it's easier to talk to someone you don't know about suicide or about depression or just a rough patch you're going through. Being available and just being that link, like I'm open and I want to listen.
Sometimes there are segments of the community where we don't talk about this. We keep our business to ourselves. It's nobody's business. What do you say to someone for whom that's almost a cultural thing? And do you have success stories where people have been able to push past that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like hearing success stories. I want to hear from both of you.
So we had a teen who was still in high school, but she had just turned 18. And she expressed to her school counselor she had been feeling down, had been thinking about suicide. So the school counselor called 211, and a mobile crisis clinician was able to respond to her. And she expressed, she hadn't been able to discuss it with anyone in her family because, that kind of topic, suicide or not feeling well mentally, was just not something you talk about.
Right.
You project that everything is fine. But the counselor was able to connect with her and build that rapport. Because she was an adult, we were able to connect her with some services.
Some services.
Yeah, so not just school counselor for like ongoing counseling, but with her permission, we were able to connect with her family and just explain, a little better about what had been going on with her lately and how the family could support her if they were open to that. And with the family's permission, also kind of get them into family counseling and kind of bridge that gap of no services to a lot of ongoing services for the whole family.
That's great. I know, Kathy, you were thinking about a story too, a success story.
I was thinking, you mentioned earlier about taboo and how sometimes people don't feel like they can reach out and they can reach out for support. And it reminds me of an individual that called a few months ago. He was going through a lot. He had lost his job.
Mm-hmm.
He was going through a rough time with his significant other, and he felt his world was crumbling. He's about to lose his home. He lost his job, and when he tried to reach out, he said that he felt like he was being less, and he felt more ashamed of the fact that he was dealing with mental health than some of the other things. So breaking that taboo and and just letting people know that this happens every day and everybody can go through a moment of crisis. But reaching for help, that's why support services are there, so that they can help you. And once we got past and we were able to kind of build that connection, we were able to connect him with some help. And he did actually call a few weeks later, and he was so appreciative, and he said he was kind of getting but just having that moment of connection and somebody acknowledging that it's okay to not be okay and reach out for help.
And that's what we're hearing now. There's this whole thing, it's okay to not be okay. It's like we're finally coming out of the closet and being open about the fact that we all get into emotional and mental trouble sometimes. That's just part of being human. You mentioned an interesting number, and I want to come back to that, Samantha, when you said 0 to 24.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we think you're young, carefree, you don't have problems, no mortgage, but I'm sure the pandemic kind of turned a whole lot of things upside down.
Sure.
Did you notice a shift in those numbers going up, especially with the isolation of the pandemic?
Yes. So last year we served over 1,500 calls in the community, so of Orange, Osceola, and Seminole, throughout that whole age range, from elementary up to, 24.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a definite increase in, I don't see my friends anymore. No one wants to hang out with me anymore. To feeling an overwhelming sense of depression, and with our more adult callers too, the financial struggle throughout the pandemic, we definitely saw a huge rise in those numbers.
So the connection between 211 and 988, which is the suicide prevention hotline, used to be an 800 number. Now it's only 3 numbers. So we want to make sure we keep mentioning that. And don't hesitate to call for someone else, because one phone call can literally save somebody's life.
Yes.
So what's a typical day when Heart of Florida United Way 211 and then Devereaux connect in this partnership? Are there certain things that you do together all the time, or is it case specific?
We work together in doing the dispatch. So when somebody reaches out, whether it's 211 or 988, we have an extensive database of services and resources. So of course we provide the de-escalation and immediate support for the crisis, but then we can also help explore what type of services might be more appropriate. They might be looking for maybe something like a therapist or a counselor, and we have some in their database. They might be needing something more immediate, and that's when the mobile crisis service comes in. And what we can do is we can connect that individual directly with mobile crisis, and then pretty much mobile crisis would take over from there.
Yep, 211 gives us that warm handoff with some basic information about the caller, and then our mobile crisis dispatcher gets a little more demographic information, but we dispatch immediately after we get that information, either via telehealth or in person, and again, that's within an hour of that initial crisis call. You don't need to make an appointment, where you come out immediately, and it's a trained counselor who has extensive training in trauma-informed care, crisis services, de-escalation, and that counselor is also going to provide a bridge to other services.
Okay.
So after that initial crisis call, making sure the person is safe and able to stay in the community, continuing to follow up with them, and looking for other services that they might need, whether that is maybe other services 211 even might be able to provide, or mental health services. So outpatient counselors in our community, psychiatry in our community, longer term residential care if that's what they need.
So this is just not, we come, we see you once, and good luck with that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We have that ongoing support really as long as they need it. So it doesn't have to be like a, thanks for calling, we'll never see each other again.
Yeah.
It is truly, working with the family, working with the individual. What do they need to stay well after our
Your
relationship
initial,
is over? And we can be as creative as they need.
Can you tell us about one time when you particularly had to be creative? Because the question that came to mind when you said, we get information from people. People sometimes worry about their privacy being violated. We don't want anybody to know. How do you handle that kind of a delicate situation?
Well, any call for mobile crisis and any Devereaux service is confidential to the individual. So we would only give out that person's information with that person's permission to share their information. So we can be creative in the way of just looking for alternative services. Maybe they're looking for a special type of counselor, maybe one that follows their specific religion, or So you
can narrow it down that much depending on what someone needs.
For sure.
Okay. What's the volume of calls now as opposed to before the world shut down in 2020? And are you seeing different things that people are calling for?
We've definitely seen an increase. The pandemic, last year alone, we had over 112,000 calls just in our Tri-County area. And we've seen an increase this year as well. A lot
Still, the numbers are still
they're
going
still
up.
going up, yep.
Okay.
Mental health services definitely going up. We had over 11,000 just for suicide intervention and crisis support last year. And a lot of them have to do with things that are going on. Housing right now in Florida is a big topic.
Mhm.
People are struggling to be able to find and stay in affordable housing. Just all the different components, employment changes.
At the beginning, I mentioned the data that shows Florida is 49th out of 50 states in mental health services. Is there a reason for that? I mean, that number is dismal considering I think we're the fourth or fifth most populated state in the country. Something's wrong there. In the work that you do and the data that you have access to, are there reasons for that? Or is that like if you had that answer, you wouldn't be here?
Pretty much. I mean, like you said, the numbers are staggering. 49 out of 50, and there's definitely need. We're such a populous state.
Such a great need.
There's just so much
And I'm
need.
wondering if some of that is because people are constantly moving in and out. The population is not as stable as in most states.
Yeah, we do see a lot of people using mobile crisis services that have recently moved and are having trouble with their loved ones staying stable in the community because they're just not connected yet. There are a lot of services in our community, but right now we're seeing a lot of wait lists to, just get in the door.
Is it a problem you think you can get your arms around, or is more help needed? Because you do so much good work, but then it's like, I use the analogy of you got holes in the boat and you got a teaspoon trying to get the water out.
I mean, with such a populous state, having that many more resources really builds that network, because mental health services has to be a network of the community coming together to work together. So having more access to resources, having less wait lists where people can go in get that immediate help when they need it.
Are you seeing a shift in people's attitudes toward mental and emotional health? Is it becoming less of a stigma? Or is there still a long way to go on that?
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. We do see a lot of young adults reaching out for themselves now.
Mhm.
They're not, waiting for someone to call on their behalf, which is really great to see, that advocacy for self.
Mhm.
But certainly any individual can call into call into 211 or call for mobile crisis services on behalf of somebody. And, we try to help as much as we can.
And that's the 988 number that we want people to kind of burn in their brains, just like they do 911 or 411. If you had some final words to someone who's seeing this and going, wow, I didn't know the numbers were that high, or, yeah, I do have a friend that I've been worried about, what would you say to them? Because there is someone out there thinking that right now.
I would say just reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out and ask. Sometimes we're so scared to ask, even though we might think that there's something going on. We notice the signs, but if we ask, sometimes we don't know what to do with that. And even if you're not sure what to do with that, just showing your support and saying, there are some services that might be able to help. You can reach out to them and they can guide you further. But be that connection that reaches out for help.
Okay. What would you say?
I would say there is that big stigma of, if I think someone's thinking about suicide and I ask about it, they're gonna, go through with their plan. And that's 100% not true.
Okay.
By asking about suicide, you are being an open link to communicate about what's going on with that person. Even just offering a listening ear to someone going through a really hard time or thinking about suicide, you are already doing a great thing. being that link to a link or support to that person will help.
That is such a key point, because sometimes we think talking about a problem brings the problem more into the person's mind, but you're saying in your experience as a licensed mental health counselor, it's just the opposite.
Right.
Okay. So we want to let everybody know 988 takes the place of the 800 number for National Suicide Prevention. September is Suicide Prevention Month, so the best thing you can do is keep an eye and an ear out and an open heart to the people you know who may be struggling, because we don't often know to say help.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we have to do it for each other. And of course, that's what Heart of Florida United Way is all about. Thank you for the work you do and for the lives you save. And thank you for calling 988.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.